Hi everybody, welcome to Truth Talkin' Thursday. We're Jim and Jane. We're back again for another round. And hey, so last week we said we were going to keep talking about that quote I found about the church. So the quote was, "If being hurt by the church causes you to lose faith in God, then your faith was in people and not God."
Right.
So we said we were going to keep going with that. So are we still on to do that?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, I think it's a really important topic for a lot of people. So,
Okay, so the question that we talked about for this week, last week, was why has religion, or organized religion, churches, why have they become unimportant? So I'm assuming we both agree that that has changed.
yep, I think we can honestly agree to that.
So did you do your homework and write down why it's important?
Do my homework. Well, Mrs. Smith, no, I didn't. Yeah, I gave it a lot of thought actually, and lots of things came up for me. I think that the church has kind of lost its importance because one, it hasn't really been. It really hasn't been sort of fortified or supported. The idea of going to church hasn't been supported by certainly this and the last generation of parents, for instance. They, for whatever reason, and I think the church as a whole has really handled their public business extremely poorly, and I know it's not right to kind of paint everybody with the same brush, and certainly not everybody is guilty as some others in the church world, but I think that's been a problem for a lot of folks, and they just didn't want to have a part of it. And if you're a clergyman, then you're the same. You're all the same, and that's the way it is. And I didn't like him, so I don't like you. And they just kind of backed away from having their kids involved in church business and the things. I mean, we used to go to. When I was a kid, we used to go to Sunday school picnics, and have a whole day of playing in the park and running around like crazy people and all that sort of thing. And nothing against crazy people. But you know what I mean. Sort of just we had fun. We went and we amused ourselves, and it was a lot of things, interacting with other kids you hadn't seen in a while and all that. It was just a whole different thing, and that's gone. I
know that I was raised differently in that way. Like we didn't have youth groups, things like that. It was just you go to church, you sit there for the service, and you leave. But I know, like I remember, like Sundays was either my mom entertained somebody from the church, like had families in, and there was Sunday dinner and afternoon visits, often kids to play with. That was just all part of it. But I know that when my kids were young, that seemed to change as well. Like the frequency of having people over or going somewhere for dinner on a Sunday, that changed as well. And I noticed it seemed like you kind of compartmentalized there. You said the reason why it's become unimportant is because parents in those generations didn't make it important, which I agree with. But I'm just wondering, does it matter why? Does it matter why they did it? Like, I think it's funny because I think I went on my little list. See, I did do homework, look, and there's actually writing on it, just so we're clear here.
Oh, you're such a good student. Yes. Yeah.
Do I get a prize?
I was going to say I could draw a little gold star here for you, maybe, or something.
Oh, crap. I was hoping for money. I'm just kidding. So I kind of went with the reasons for the unimportance. So, like, I remember hearing parents saying about the busyness, right? Like, so many families, like, you've got both dad and mom work full time, plus they have the regular household chores like laundry, groceries, all that kind of stuff. Plus, if they have 2 or 3 kids and they're all involved in extracurricular activities, like most families, like, if you've got a son, well, even some daughters, I shouldn't be gender specific there, but you have kids in sports. You got hockey. You have often travel teams as well. Like I know my son was on the travel basketball team. Well, by the time you do school sports as well as travel teams, if you've got somebody in dance, like that takes a lot of time, so that was a reason. But a couple other reasons that kind of came to my mind was like the confusion over who's right. There's so many churches that claim to be right, that's the way. And I know how I was raised, like that was just understood. Like there's only one church, there's one way, there's one faith, one hope, one baptism, there's one way, and that's it. So there wasn't an option for another church. But another thing I've heard a lot is hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that like there's corruption. There's corruption in most large churches, and I've heard several people, and I'm going to throw myself in that too. I know people that go to church on Sunday, and they certainly don't seem very Christian-like during the week. And you know, I have to admit, I think I've been that way sometimes too. I'm a hypocrite sometimes too. I'm not exempt from that.
I prefer to I prefer to look at us as being human beings and being fallible. And when I think about ministers and priests and pastors and apparently they all have a different kind of role to play. They're all the kind of the head of that congregation sort of thing, but it means something different. Anyway, you know, when I hear about some of the things that have happened, and I see some of the things that have happened, and I've talked to some folks who have been pastors in churches and all that, and kind of, you know, sort of fallen into kind of a black pit, I guess, of despair because of certain behaviors, all that kind of thing. I don't look at the church and say, well, the church is at fault here. Nobody's at fault here. What we've got here is a human being who's really kind of, for the most part, living a very unnatural lifestyle. I mean, priests can't marry. So how are they going to tell me, if I'm a Catholic kid, how are they going to tell me what to do in a relationship or in a marriage? They've never been married in their lives. They have absolutely no idea what it's like to share a bathroom with anybody. Or, you know, or to...
They don't have the experience to go with it.
No, they don't. So how can I take their word, how can I take their word verbatim, sort of? How can I take it as, oh, well, that guy really knows what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So, and pastors are the same, and priests. So they're all kind of human beings and subject to being fallible, and they're going to make mistakes. I think for me the biggest problem is when somebody's made a mistake, the church has tried to bury it, tried to hide it. They transfer the guy from Hamilton to Kalamazoo, Michigan, you know, so that nobody will ever see him again.
Yeah.
But they can't kind of, you know, they can't dismiss, but they also can't punish. It seems anyway.
And doesn't that seem kind of strange?
Well, I think it's the reason why people have lost sort of faith in the church is because it is strange, and it's not straightforward, and it's not, well, my goodness, if you got caught with your hand in a cookie jar, you got punished for that. Yeah. That's wrong. You can't do that. And so there needed to be some sort of public acknowledgement that little Johnny was broke the law kind of thing, and so he's being punished for that. But there was no acknowledgement really of the reverend or the pastor or the priest or whatever. And it's, you know, the other part that we forget about here is nuns. I mean, they were as bad as anybody was, but we never hear about that. We never hear about it. So to me, it's the reputation that's been allowed to proceed and to build without without consequence kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do I want my kid, or does my kid want to be a part of that?
Yeah. And it kind of comes around full circle then as far as, is it worth it? Which is kind of probably what parents have come to. And by saying that, I'm thinking, so it's not worth it to fit going to church into my schedule. Because there's too much garbage. There's too much things, they don't call things what they are.
No.
It's dishonest.
Well, and the other thing they've done though is they've also filled the gap Sunday mornings with other things that they haven't been able to put into play during the week. And you touched on that. You mentioned that. I mean, when I go by the beer store, I mean there was a day when the beer store was never ever open on Sunday.
At banks or grocery stores.
Nothing. You couldn't even shop on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Bit too far for me that way, but at the same time, so I go by On my way to church, yes, I am a churchgoer and all that kind of stuff. Quite proud of that. When I go to church in the morning, the service with the church I attend starts at 10 o'clock, so I'm going by there about 9:30, and the baseball timers are full. The stands they're half full with parents. Yeah, go Johnny, go, and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at the rink, at the ballpark, at the lacrosse thing, outdoor basketball, wherever it happens to be, that's where parents are with their kids. So in my day, you were on your way to church with your best clothes on, sort of thing, all dressed up because you wouldn't be seen otherwise.
Yeah.
And I admit that was, for me, that even then I thought that's too far one way or the other sort of thing. But there was never sort of any middle ground sought. It was either that or that.
Yeah.
And now it's settled for that. And parents are thinking that they're doing doing a solid for their kids.
It's almost become it's a have to.
It's a have to, and it's aren't I a good parent? Look at me.
Yeah.
And well, to be honest, part of me says no.
Yeah. Because
Sunday afternoon is. I mean, go to church in the morning if you want. But they don't feel that religious connection of any kind is important anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the discussion here is why isn't it important anymore?
Yeah.
Because I think the short answer is they don't believe anymore.
It's funny because that's the last point I actually had, lack of belief. And I know that for me, we talked about this a little bit last week as well. For me, I know that that's kind of what it came down to as far as being excommunicated. It came down to, I don't think I would say a lack of belief for me, but questioning, just confusion for me. And I guess that's kind of sad, and I think it kind of follows that maybe we need to give that some thought.
Yep. The
lack of belief.
We got one more week at this?
Yeah.
Okay. Your homework for the week.
Ooh.
See how you like homework. Is when I was coming, I thought about a question that often happens to a lot of folks when they find themselves in very perilous situations. Have you ever had a near-death experience?
No.
I've had two.
Oh my.
Near-death experience.
We got to talk about this sometime. So don't let them off the hook.
The point is, whether you believe in God or not, He's the first guy you talk to when you're in a near-death experience. My good Lord, get me out of here, and I'll do this. I'll be the good guy. I'll swing.
Yep.
And you make all kinds of wild promises and all that kind of.
Yep.
If you don't believe in God, who are you talking to?
I think that's a really great question. Great. It's great.
It's great question.
It's a great. And on that note, I think how about we talk about that next week? How about we talk about
who are you talking to?
Who are we talking to?
If you don't believe in God.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that'll kind of lead into what does this lack of spirituality or church importance, what does it affect? Sound good?
How does it affect us today?
Yeah.
How does it affect us in our day-to-day lives with other people? Anything, all that is, but when you think about the decisions people are making in their lives today, it's not with any sense of any sort of spirituality.
Yeah. So on that note, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.